Hello. Read it here. Today we're going to read a story from /Am I the Asshole? Now, for our first story, Am I the Asshole for expecting my wife to adult? My 47M, wife, 45F, refuses to do anything with me that involves other people. She was diagnosed with ADHD as an adult and takes medication for it. She also claims to have social anxiety disorder, though I'm not sure that's ever been officially diagnosed. Anytime I ask her to join me at any kind of social event, or even to just go out to dinner ourselves at a nice restaurant, she refuses, claiming she can't because of her ADHD. If I push the issue too much, she has a fit, says, you don't understand, I can't, I have social anxiety, and then sulks off and stops talking to me for the next hour or so. Since high school, I believe that I also have ADHD, but I've never bothered to get an official diagnosis. I'm also extremely introverted, but I realized pretty early into my career that if I wanted to get ahead, I had to break out of my comfort zone. I've found ways to keep myself focused and organized, and I put myself out there by volunteering to do things like presentations and leading training sessions. These days I can get up in front of an auditorium full of people without batting an eye. Those small groups still give me some angst. I currently serve on 2 nonprofit boards, and a few times a year we have events where spouses are invited, and of course I always go alone. The only times my wife has joined me was when I was installed as president of one of those boards, when my term ended, and when I was presented an award. My wife did attend 2 of my good friends' weddings, but she insisted we leave as soon as dinner was over. On the other hand, when there is something important to my wife, I'm expected to drop everything to be there with her. She even dragged me to her grandmother's 80th birthday party about a month after we met. When her dad comes to visit, which he did 4 times last year, he stays for 2 to 3 weeks, and I'm expected to take 2 or 3 days off from work to spend with him each time. When my mom and sister come to visit, my wife allows them to stay for 4 days tops, insists I can't just take time off at the last minute like you can, even though she knows they're coming weeks or months in advance, and seems to have no trouble doing it when her dad comes. Does everything she can to avoid them, and complains the whole time they're here. For what it's worth, my wife is a nurse, career that's got to be in the top 10 most demanding of social capital. I know it's hard to be social when you're not used to it, so I try to be understanding, but I don't feel that my wife is trying. I'm perfectly fine with being a homebody most of the time, but sometimes it's fun to get out and do things, and we never do. We have no couples friends, even though my wife knows all of my closest friends, and in most cases, their wives. I'm sick of always making excuses for why she can't make it to any of the work/org social events that I'm expected to attend, and I'm sick of the temper tantrums when I ask join me. Let's hear from the comment section. Comment 1. You don't have to make excuses when she refuses to join you. Just say that she didn't want to come. She needs to see a therapist to deal with her anxiety. You must have known she was like this before you married, so not sure what you expect to change, but do ask her to seek help for her own benefit. Not so she will go out with you. Not the asshole. Comment 2. It might also be that her social battery gets completely burned out during her workday/week, and she just doesn't have spoons for the activities OP wants her to join him for. That said, if that's the case, that is something that she should be able to verbalize. Therapists may be able to help her sort out where the anxiety actually stems from, and if there is something that can be done. Comment 3. As someone with social anxiety, I will say that the level of spoons it takes to socialize with people you are comfortable with is much lower than the level of spoons it takes to socialize with people you only marginally know, and being pressured to socialize in those situations makes the anxiety worse. However, that doesn't mean that OP can't go out and socialize without her. He can even continue inviting her. Sometimes she might have the spoons for it and accept if there's no pressure, just an invitation. She has to make some concessions when it comes to family to even things out. She can't veto his family coming for more than 4 days at a time when her father visits for 2 to 3 week stretches. If 4 days is legitimately all she can handle, then either OP can get an Airbnb and stay in it with his mom and sister for a couple of weeks, and she can join them for 4 days out of that time, or they can stay for a longer period at OP's house, and his wife can set boundaries where she retreats to her room and doesn't interact with them without judgment or pressure to join when she has low social spoons. Both partners should be allowed to decide when to skip events. She can't skip going to all of his social events while insisting that he goes to hers. Even if his presence helps her with her social anxiety, that's not a fair burden to place on him. Comment 4. You sound like a dear friend of mine. Or at least like you're in the position he'd be in right now if he married his most recent ex. This girl drained him to the point that he became a sort of shell of himself. She also claimed to have severe ADHD and social anxiety that only really seemed to flare up when he wasn't paying attention to her. When he was out with his friends, she would have panic attacks and spam text/call him until he came home. When he brought her with him to combat this, she would pout in a corner if he dared to have a conversation that didn't involve /center her, or she'd storm off and hide for half an hour. I used to have a lot of sympathy for her until I realized that her panic attacks and stress episodes were miraculously absent as long as she was the center of attention. For instance, her birthday party went off without a single hitch until he dared to leave her, one room away, to say hi to me and some other of our older friends. Then she was crying in the bathroom because she just got too anxious all of a sudden. The way that girl treated my friend wasn't right. It was manipulative and controlling. It eroded all of his relationships outside of her and kept him walking on constant eggshells. The way your wife is treating you isn't right either. Whether or not she's doing it consciously, she's manipulating you. Massive, not the asshole. And I hope you can set some better boundaries with her in the future. Now, for our second story. Am I the asshole for not buying my girlfriend's kids' cars? My daughter is turning 16, and I agreed to help get her a car. She asked for a little Honda or Toyota that's good on gas. We set a budget of $3,000, and if she wants something more expensive, then she needs to kick in the remainder. My girlfriend's 2 kids got upset because I won't buy them the cars they want. One asked me for BMW i8, and the other requested a brand new truck. I told them they needed to take it up with their mom and dad that they're the ones that should be buying them a car. We aren't married and only been together 2.5 years. Their dad is pissed because I won't help out his kids, and girlfriend's pissed because I'm doing for my kids but not hers. Girlfriend's sister and husband agrees with them, saying I'm an asshole for treating her kids different. I don't think I'm the asshole, but instead feel like I got a gold digger family after what I work hard for. Figured I'll let the internet determine if I'm actually the asshole and if I should reconsider my stance on the subject. Let's hear from the comment section. Comment 1, not the asshole. But do you pay for everything for your girlfriend and her kids? It sounds like maybe that's the case. Why do they feel so entitled? And her ex as well? They're all waving red flags here. You might need to reconsider this whole relationship. While you're willing to help your own daughter out with $3,000 towards a car, I don't understand why anyone else would come with their hands out, expecting money too. I certainly wouldn't be paying for cars for anyone else. You're not married. Comment 2. It's a boyfriend/girlfriend situation that's already settled in their financial living ways and how they will take care of their own kids. And now, suddenly other people, especially outside of the family, are sticking their hands out and actually having pissing matches when the kid of the boyfriend receives a large gift. You know, OP, you're not married. You do not have any responsibility towards your girlfriend's kids. It is very tacky and gross for people outside of your family demanding monetary gift just because your own child receives something nice from her father. Not the asshole at all. Stick to your guns. Don't fall for any pleading/begging/demands. In fact, I'd reconsider your girlfriend's character and intentions. Does she want to be with you out of love? Or because you are her cash cow father figure for her kids? To add to this, even if you were married, it's still not your job to provide for another man's kids. This isn't a red flag situation. That's a warning. What you have is worse. It's objective proof. Run away. You're already floating their living costs. Comment 3. Makes me wonder where girlfriend's money is going if she's not paying for housing and bills. Imagine paying for half the groceries and maybe phone bills, then expecting someone else to buy your kids' cars, especially a BMW i8 and a brand new truck, LOL. Plus their dad's still in the picture on top of that, and they still can't manage it? Not sure how the relationship is outside of finances, but if these are the expectations, and that's how they're all going to act when those obviously ridiculous expectations aren't met, I can only imagine what the rest is like. And of course, GF's sister and her husband are going to have some shit opinion. Maybe they can chip in on the i8 and F-150. Comment 4. Not the asshole. They aren't your kids. Repeat that to yourself as many times as necessary. They have 2 parents that can buy them a car. If you gave them $1 each to go towards a car, that's more than you are obligated to give. They're all acting like grasping leeches. You owe them nothing. The fact your girlfriend pays no rent or utilities and she's asking for more? No. Now, for our third story. Am I the asshole for refusing to sign my neighbor's use of yard waiver? Last Thursday, my neighbors approached my wife regarding a use of yard waiver since they don't have the clearance to move excavators and bobcats to their backyard to build a pool. The waiver states they need 10 feet of clearance. 4 feet would be into our yard based on my measurements, and they would repair the grass to its original state. I have an irrigation system and internet lines which run beneath the area which would be used. The neighbors were leaving for FL and asked for a 48-hour turnaround. I spoke to the pool company on Friday, and the PM said they need 10 to 12 feet, and they need the waiver because there is a good chance the ground will be totally torn up. It was my wife's 30th birthday this weekend, so this situation was not top of mind, but my neighbor knocks on the door Saturday afternoon asking for a response. I kindly explain I am not comfortable signing the current waiver given the typos, lack of notarization, and ambiguities regarding repairs. He takes it personally and storms out of the house complaining about how much money he is going to lose. Today, the project manager from the pool company knocks on our door asking what they can do to resolve this. I told him I really don't want my yard torn up, but at minimum a new waiver needs drafted, and I would consider it. He then says we have an electrical easement which runs 1.5 feet into our yard in the exact spot he wants to use and would just call for access. I check my plat design and deed to see there is not any easement running through the area they need. He leaves and the situation is still up in the air. Edit. Thanks everyone for your input. I had run this situation by many friends and colleagues, and the answers were consistently no, unless you can get outrageous stipulations, and even so, it is still a risk. At the end of the day, I don't want to be dealing with the pool contractor or neighbor to return my yard and irrigation to its original state. Let's hear from the comment section. Comment 1. Not the asshole. Putting in a pool is not some kind of emergency. They have the luxury of time to do their research before and didn't. You don't owe them the risk of destroying your property and putting your lines from different services at risk so they can go swimming. The nail in the coffin was the lie about the easement. Comment 2. 100% this. I had a neighbor who wanted unlimited construction access through my side and backyard for work on an addition to their house. I refused. They kept bugging me. Had my lawyer draw up a limited access and limited time document which required a minimum upfront payment of $25,000 to my lawyer in trust to pay for remedial work if required. I didn't expect them to agree, and of course, they refused. They got permission from neighbor B on the other side. 3 days after the start of the work, neighbor B wakes up in the middle of the night, having just returned that evening from vacation, to the sound of creaking and groaning from his 1930s built house. They had to evacuate their home. Subcontractor had dug a deep trench between the houses and right against neighbor B's house and didn't put in any shoring. House had started moving. Neighbor B's house was condemned and the family was out of their house. It had to be demolished. The resulting lawsuit settled, and they got some nice big checks from neighbors, contractors, and subcontractors' insurers. Oh, and my lawyer, who did the draft for me, happens to specialize in construction negligence. Active for neighbor B. Pro bono. Lawyer got fabulous 3-course Italian meals delivered to his office every Friday. Comment 3. I agree. If it's something that is the homeowner's responsibility, then the PM isn't responsible for chasing it down. Can't tell you how many times I've met with builders, me as a sub, and told them what I needed done beforehand to make the project go smoothly. I get reassurance it's done, show up, and guess what? The prep work hasn't been done. I either do what I can and charge for the extra time and work, leave and tell them I'll put them back on the schedule when it's done, or do my part and let them figure out how to finish it up. Same thing if I'm working for a homeowner. They're responsible for getting approval for any sort of HOA. I'm not dealing with that shit, and if they tell me we're good to go, then I'm moving ahead. If they lied to me, then that is between them and the HOA. I'll work until the homeowner tells me I have to stop, or a government agency tells me to stop. I don't listen to HOAs, but that'll be between the HOA and the homeowner to sort out. Bottom line, if the customer didn't uphold their end of homework, that's on them and they're going to have to pay for delays. That's probably why the neighbor was freaking out. I love the I dropped the ball, but I'm going to Florida move. If I was the pool guy, I'm moving on to the next job, charging for wasted time, and I'll put you on the schedule when you give me the proper paperwork. Comment 4. Project manager said they neighbors have known about this for months and just forgot to bring it over to us until he reminded them. They do have the other side of their house, but their driveway would be ruined, and they still need a use of yard waiver from the other side neighbor. I am an attorney. If in your shoes, I contact an attorney immediately. Pay the money to have their use of yard agreement once overed and legally responded to in writing on my behalf, addressing whatever liability and recourse concerns your attorney comes up with. Would think said strongly worded response aimed at my neighbors and their contractor would show them I'm not fucking around, legal term, and they shouldn't seek to find out. Secondarily, have my irrigation and internet lines marked with opposing color flags or paint, along with my property line from curb to the back. Lastly, even if it's cheap, I'd install a recordable outdoor camera that had a clear view of that side of the house 24/7 until said disagreement over use is settled. But that's me just spitballing out loud and not legal advice. Now, for our 4th story. Am I the asshole for moving out after my roommate left her cat home alone for 3 weeks? My roommate Mia, 24F, and I, 22F, are both grad students living in a 2-bedroom apartment. She has a dog and a cat, and this winter break, we both flew home to see our families. Before we left, she mentioned that she was taking her dog with her, but leaving the cat for what would be 3 weeks, and a cat sitter would come by to empty the litter box and give the cat clean water. I didn't really like the idea of a stranger having the keys to our apartment since she wasn't very clear about who the cat sitter would be, but I agreed. Anyway, right as she was leaving for her flight, she got a delivery of an automatic feeder with a camera so she could watch the cat. And since she had no time to set it up, I put it together and also set out another bowl of water because she asked me to. I'm not heading back to the apartment for another weeks, but Mia flew back today and sent me a text. Mia, hey, so my cat sitters never showed up while I was gone. The cat is fine because she had plenty of water and food, but she did take out her anger on my shoes. Most of your shoes by the door are absolutely fine, but your white sneakers caught some gross from my surrounding shoes. I figure you'd prefer if I just replace them as opposed to trying to save them. So if you send me the link and the size, I'll get them here by the time you get back. I really appreciate her offering to replace my shoes, but I feel like she would have known early into the 3 weeks of break that her cat sitter wasn't going to come. Also, I can't imagine how the apartment smells if the cat only had 1 litter box and dirty water for nearly 3 weeks. It's a little suspicious that she got the automatic feeder and asked me to put out more water. So I think there's a possibility there was never a cat sitter. And in that case, to me, it seems like animal abuse to knowingly leave your cat alone all that time. My friend said I'm overreacting and that it's nice of her to make things right by replacing my shoes. But after this, I don't want to live with her. Am I the asshole to want to break my lease early? It's meant to end in August. And leave her to find different living arrangements? Unlike me, she has loans and inconsistent work while I get a fixed stipend for staying. Other than this, she's an all-right roommate, and I know it would put her in a really bad spot financially to move again. In the 4 months we lived together before this, she cared for her pets really well. So am I making a big deal out of nothing? Let's hear from the comment section. Comment 1. Not the asshole. I also don't believe she had a sitter coming. Or even if she did have a sitter coming, she should have been able to arrange something else. But she didn't. There are some people out there who treat cats a little better than furry cacti, and she sounds like one of those. Comment 2. Every time I've had a cat sitter for more than a week, whether it was a friend/family member, a professional sitter, or a service, I've always had check-ins from them. If I hadn't heard from a cat sitter after the first week, I would have reached out to them. If I still couldn't get a hold of them, I would have seen if I could get someone else to check in on the cat and make sure things were fine. If I couldn't find someone else or didn't have a way to get a key to them, I would have ended my trip early. This is not someone who cares about the well-being of their pet. Comment 3. It's sadly pretty normal for pet sitters to flake and owners to not know until they get back. Though it makes me wonder if she checked the feeder's camera at all while she was away, and what kind of pet owner wouldn't check that at least a few times. If this is her first cat, it is possible this really is just a mistake. I would have a conversation with your roommate and mention your concerns without mentioning that you're thinking of leaving. not the asshole, because you shouldn't force yourself to stay somewhere that makes you feel uncomfortable, and that cat smell lingering is very possible. Comment 4. I assume if you break the lease, she's got to move out with her dog and cat. I would also assume that if she can't find a place to stay that accepts pets, she's likely to dump them at a shelter. If you're upset at her for how she treated the cat, fair, I'm mad about that too. This does not help that issue. I agree that she neglected the cat horribly. I agree that she probably planned on no cat sitter, given the suspicious auto feeder and request to put out extra water. I can only imagine how bad the apartment smelled after 3 weeks of no litter box maintenance, and how anxious and upset the cat was. You say she has been good to the pets before this. Breaking the lease does nothing to help her learn why what she did was wrong. But a hard conversation about expectations and animal care might help. I'm going to say soft white hiye if you break the lease, only because it further punishes the animals involved. Personally, I'd look at someone differently if I knew they left their cat alone for 3 weeks. I would definitely choose not to renew the lease with them, but I'd see the current lease out as a kindness to the animals. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see more.